Okay.
Yeah, I think we're there. Yeah.
Hello everybody, good afternoon. It is Thursday again, and this is the Infant Feeding Team session on Facebook Live with the Oxfordshire Maternity Voices Partnership. I'm Naomi, one of the Infant Feeding Team midwives.
And I'm Alex, another one of the Infant Feeding Team midwives.
So this is a question and answer session for breastfeeding and bottle feeding and anything infant feeding. If you're pregnant, if you've no matter how old, it is a session for you to talk about infant feeding. So if you have worries about pregnancy or anything, then we would suggest you direct it to the to your midwives and ask them if you've got a direct problem, or if Wendy Randall's doing a session, to wait for that session. She will be able to answer the correct questions, because we don't always deal with everything in pregnancy as infant feeding specialists. So please do listen, absolutely, and offer your questions. So you can type in and we will read them up and go through the session. We'll probably do up to an hour, see how many questions we got. We didn't get so many last week. So hopefully we'll get lots of questions this week. And this week we thought we would talk a little bit about skin to skin. We do talk about skin to skin. We talk about skin to skin an awful lot. But somebody said to me yesterday that they didn't know what skin to skin was. They knew that they had to do it, but they didn't know what it was. So we're assuming a lot, so we'll apologise for that. So skin to skin is when your baby is down to its nappy, and you as a mum are have stripped off as well. So you might have a bra on, you might take the bra off, it's entirely up to you what you want to do, but actually there's a large amount of skin free and available, and you can put your baby in a towel. So you put your baby underneath a blanket or a towel or muslin or whatever, and you cuddle your baby skin to skin. So you would do this as soon as your baby is born, and then you can do it for as long as you like. And actually everybody likes skin to skin, that's why people get pregnant. So it doesn't ever go away. Skin to skin is lovely, but for babies it's really beneficial. But really, to do proper skin to skin, and that means that the hormones are being stimulated for making milk in the early days. We know that babies that have been skin to skin and have had a delivery with skin to skin immediately, the mums tend to make more milk than babies that haven't had lots of skin to skin. It doesn't mean that you're not going to produce milk if you don't do it because your baby's had to be separated from you for any reason, if it's had to go to a resuscitaire or it's been to the neonatal unit. But generally we would encourage you as the mother to do the first bit of skin to skin, and then dads can do it a bit later on, or partners can do it a bit later on. And obviously part of it is transferring bacteria from your skin to your baby's skin so that you're creating the right flora for your baby. But the majority in the initial bit is so that you have this huge surge of hormones that will start the process of making milk. So we know if you have a cesarean that the opportunity to do skin to skin is a little bit less, because you're obviously on a theatre table and you have got you're numb probably from quite high up under your ribs down. So you feel quite vulnerable and you feel quite sick sometimes, and you feel quite sort of claustrophobic with all the stuff around you, and you've got a big sheet in front of you quite often, and you're quite shivery and cold and might feel sick. So you might not want to have your baby with you for very long, but what we will encourage you to do is do a little bit as soon as your baby comes out, so that you start that process. And then when you are feeling better, then you do a really lovely extended skin to skin as quickly as you can after that. And that, we know, will increase your milk supply. We know that a lot of mums that have cesareans, their babies lose a little bit more weight sometimes because the milk supply is a little bit slower to come in. So it might not arrive on day 3, it might come in on day 4 or 5. So you have to be extra vigilant. Not only have you had major surgery, you've got to be really extra vigilant in order to get that skin to skin back up and running, so that you can really start to produce milk. And you can see when babies are suckling, when they've suckled at the breast in the first hour, which is what the skin to skin will promote. It will promote behaviour, mammalian behaviour. It will promote and stimulate your baby to crawl and to breastfeed, it's much more likely to do that than if you put your baby in clothes in a cot across the room from you. It won't display the same cues to feed as a baby that is skin to skin with mum. So even in the early feed, that first feed that you do with skin to skin, that breast will produce more milk initially, and you will pump. If you need to ever pump or hand express, you'll find that the flow is slightly more on that side that you did the first breastfeed on, but you will catch up. But interestingly, that first feed significantly increases the initiation of breast milk. So it's really important, even if you can't get your baby to suckle, it's very sleepy after delivery, or for whatever reason you can't manage it, you need to do some hand expressing as well. Really, really important. So do some skin to skin, then do some hand expressing, or do skin to skin with hand expressing. And you'll find that the milk flows much quicker from your breasts if you do skin to skin and hand express at the same time. Really has a massive impact. So that don't underestimate the impact that it has on your milk production and the way that you bond with your baby. Don't underestimate that. How are we doing? Have we got some questions?
Yeah, well,
I hope you're all listening.
That was me looking
and
totally uninterested, but actually that's because I had to re-log in to be able to see any questions. Actually, we've got a couple of comments thus far. We've had a hello from the Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support Team, which is fab, our really good colleagues, and the Leche League as well have been in touch as well, so that's lovely. So thank you to both those, because we really do rely on them
for a lot of support.
So yeah, I can see the questions coming up. Fantastic. We've just got one come up now. Katie, she said, I'm currently 29 plus 4 and I've started leaking milk already. Any advice, ladies? Well, we'll celebrate. That's
all
fantastic.
Good. That's all completely normal, but if you don't produce any at 29 weeks, don't panic.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, because some women have lots at 16 weeks and some women don't see any at all for the whole pregnancy. Both are normal. So
Absolutely.
Don't panic. It doesn't indicate that you're not going to produce milk, but if you are, brilliant.
But don't collect it at this stage. We've talked about this numerous times before on these sessions. We wouldn't be encouraging you to do any collecting at this stage. Collecting would normally start from about 37 weeks, so that's fine. You might find that you might want to wear a pad in your, sort of a breast pad in your bra if you are leaking quite a bit, but that's just completely normal. What you'll notice is there can be complete variance of colours. It can be quite dark, and when it dries, it goes like sugar crystals, because it is a lot of sugar in there. So it is quite interesting, but that's totally normal. And that's fine. It's really reassuring. It's lovely, really. So fabulous, Katie. That's really good news.
Celebrate.
Lovely. So we haven't any more questions at the moment. So keep them flowing. I think we've got 33 people watching. It's telling me at the moment. So give us some questions. So we've already covered. We're talking about skin to skin. I think we've covered that numerous times in the past. And we were going to talk about the Unicef Baby Friendly Alliance. Again, I'm just going to mention that, the Baby Friendly Initiative, which is something that we as a hospital are going for. Many hospitals in the UK are. It's like a gold standard mark. It's a mark to say that our staff are really well trained and will provide you with the information that you need to help you get feeding off to a good start. We're not here to tell you how to feed your baby. We're here to support you in whatever decision you make. And our staff have the skills there to support you, whether you choose to breastfeed or formula feed, to do that in such a way that is really good for your baby. So we talk about responsiveness and relationship building, which is all about keeping your babies close, following your intuitions, and watching for your baby's cues, really. And remembering you cannot spoil a baby.
Yeah, responsiveness is really important, because I think some people don't feel that they can pick their baby up because it's had a feed and it's not due another one. And I think that you're responding to your baby as a mother if you feel that your breasts are full and you want to feed your baby, or you just want to smell him or her. You just want to sniff your baby, then pick it up. And your baby will respond to you when it's hungry. It will wake you up, as you know. So it works both ways. It's reciprocity, and you'll find that as a result of that, you'll have a two-way pathway between you and your baby, and you'll get to know each other much better. So responsiveness is really important for things like growing a baby's brain. As Alex has already said, you can't spoil a baby. So responding to your baby's needs and cues and behaviour and everything that it does is really, really important in a baby development, and gives you confidence as a mother that you're actually tuned into your baby and you're actually recognising that your baby is has certain needs, and you will get to know what those needs are and the little noises that your baby makes if you're much more in tune with your baby and watching what it's doing, rather than expecting your baby to be in a cot for 3 or 4 hours between feeds so that you can get on with your day.
Which is not what a baby expects.
It's not mammalian behaviour,
No.
and you know, they expect to be held, and that's why they've got their hands close like that. They're holding on to you. They're holding on to the fur that we used to have, you know, millions of years ago on our bodies. They're holding on like that, like monkeys do now, and they don't put their babies down. And you know, human babies have the same needs, and they don't know if they're a monkey or whether they're a little human. They just expect to be cuddled and be close to their mum and other parent, you know, so that they can hear the heartbeat and recognise the voices that they've heard throughout the pregnancy.
Yeah, the warmth and that kind of just
and security. And we know that if you put a baby down, they have a particular cry. Which
it's a separation, isn't it?
Yeah, separation cry. It's very different to a hungry cry. You will learn these. But when you put your baby down, it's telling you it doesn't want to leave you and it doesn't know when you're going to come back. You might say to it, I'm coming back in 5 minutes, but your baby doesn't know that.
No.
It thinks it's been left. So it will have that particular cry. So that will increase your baby's cortisol levels when they become separated. So their anxiety, you know, the level of anxiety goes up in babies when they're separated from you, and their hormone levels of the hormones that cause stress are released, and they do become much more stressed. So skin to skin, going back to that, and just having your baby close will increase their hormones of love, and that's the oxytocin. So that will improve the bonding and your baby's well-being, and they will be far more secure and more settled if they can smell you and hear you, and they can be with you all the time and can feel your breathing. And that's part of responsiveness. You're responding to your baby, and your baby is responding to you. It's a really, really important part of mothering.
I can see the questions and comments are coming through. We've got Claire. She says, hello and thanks for all the help we've given so far. Her question is about positioning attachment. Her baby's nearly 6 weeks and never seems to tip his head back, and his lower lip doesn't seem to flange out like his upper lip. How can I encourage this? I've tried nose to nipple. I have an oversupply and forceful letdown, so quite a tough time getting a good latch. Sorry this is so long. No apologies needed. That's absolutely fine. Be as long as you need. I think Naomi's looking for some props.
I'm looking for some props. I've always got props, haven't I?
Yeah, we always have props.
You might find that your baby is close to you. You might find that that's working well, that your nose to nipple. But you might find, I don't know if you can see, you might find that
go sideways.
Sideways on.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yes.
I need to go back
I can
a
see
bit.
that now.
So you might find that your baby is close to you, but it might be a little bit too far up. I would suggest that you look at your baby's tummy button, where it is, and bring it down and round so it's a little bit closer to your nipple on the other side. And your baby then will be in a position where it's underneath the nipple. Can you see it's underneath, rather than being there like that, which is close to you, nose to nipple? That's absolutely it. Your baby is brought right round a little bit further, and as you see, the chin is much lower on the breast. Tell me if you don't see what I'm doing. And I'm pulling the baby's head back, because then your baby will start to sniff because the nipple is further away. So if you put your baby's mouth a little bit too high up, which is what most mums do, they won't gape. But if you bring your baby down further and rub the nipple down the top lip, it will start to gape a little bit more. The other thing which we talk about a lot is the angle at which your breast dangles. So if your breast is down there and you're doing nose to nipple like that, it might be that the baby's not getting the maximum stimulation, so you might need to turn your baby around to look up at you a little bit more. That enables your baby to get its mouth really onto the breast. So rather than being central, it's underneath like that, and then that will allow a really deep latch to get a bigger mouthful. And often when babies get to 4, 5, 6 weeks old, their mouths are much bigger, and that means that they can be a bit sort of lackadaisical about attaching, and you've got used to them being there so it doesn't hurt. But actually they could probably do with going underneath the breast a bit more, which allows them to sniff the air a bit more, and they get more underneath the breast to get the milk out, and that will reduce your supply a little bit if they can transfer the milk more effectively. Being on the end a little bit too much can overstimulate to produce too much, and you get very full breasts full of loads of sort of sweet, lots of sugary milk with lots of carbohydrates, and what you want is a bit more fat, and then that sort of damps down the supply a little bit and stops your baby from just feeding lots and lots and lots at the end. Try that and just see if it helps, and if you're still struggling, you know, we could either ABS, Oxford Breastfeeding Support, or ourselves, we can watch, or your health visitor can watch your positioning again just to see.
And that doesn't have to be person to person, because OBS are doing online support and so are we, so we're able to provide you with support, and actually it works amazingly well doing this online support. So it's, you don't have to fight your way into, well, it's not even that difficult to get here at the moment, but you don't have to come into the hospital, which many people don't want to do. So it is something we can be watching on one of our video platforms. So just let us know if you want us to have a watch, or get in contact with Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support. You can also do it. Although just to remind you that Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support are having a week's leave imminently, so we'll still be around. So Alice has asked, she's been in touch before, and she said her little daughter's had her tongue tie cut nearly 2 weeks ago. She's 5 weeks old now, and she's been expressing milk to try a bottle, but she's completely refusing. When she had the tongue tie cut, she was told that her daughter had a reverse suck, so she just pushes the teat out and gets really frustrated. Any tips? It is very difficult when they do that.
Were you given any exercises by the practitioner when you had the tongue tie snipped? And the other thing you can do is to run your finger down your baby's top lip and encourage your baby to put its tongue down, and that will encourage the baby to stick its tongue out a little bit more. I'm sure they probably did that exercise with you, and that will just encourage the baby to start to actually put the tongue down and to start to stick it out, and that might start your baby to suckle. Sometimes if it was a very complex tongue tie, if it was a little bit further back, sometimes they have this reverse peristalsis, and it can be reversed. It can change over and it can improve. Have you got lots of milk? Because good feeding is good physio. Is your baby going to the breast at all? Because that will certainly encourage your baby to gape and take a big mouthful, which might encourage good tongue function. Good feeding is good physio, and that's what you need to do. So it's probably worth you talking to us a little bit more if you want to, or talking to your health visitor, so that we can talk you through it and just see if there's any other suggestions that we can make to you. You can have a two-way conversation with us.
Okay, so that'd
I
be
hope
great.
That helps you.
Yeah, do get in touch, won't you, Alice? That would be lovely to hear from you. Amy said that she's due in 3 weeks and she'd like to breastfeed. And I'm just going to go back to it because it's disappeared down. Will she get help in the hospital at delivery? Yes. Well, this is what we were talking about with regard to the Unicef Baby Friendly initiative, that all our staff are trained to support with feeding. So they've all been trained in how to help with positioning and attachment, how to hand express, and if anything's a bit out of the norm, then we get involved. And as we've said on these sessions before, in a way you don't want to see us, because if you see us, that's because something's not going quite normally. So our staff are fabulous. They will help you with positioning and attachment, but actually babies can do most of it themselves if we leave them to it. So we already talked about skin-to-skin contact. When you have your baby, leave your baby in skin-to-skin. Don't let it go off anywhere else. Keep it close, and babies will mostly do that themselves. So give your baby the chance to put themselves on if you can at all.
And really prime your milk receptors. So if your baby's very sleepy after the delivery and it's not showing much interest, they may only want 3 feeds in the first 24 hours. That's absolutely normal. You might think about doing some hand expressing frequently. If your baby's sleepy, do lots and lots of frequent hand expressions in the first 2 days, 48 hours, so that you're really priming your receptors in your breast to produce milk, because your baby then will want that milk, and they'll get it quicker if you do lots of early stimulations, and your baby will be much happier and will suckle much more at the breast if things are available for it. So if your baby is sleepy, do some hand expression all the time. Just do it all the time while you're waiting for your baby to wake up. Do every hour, do some hand expressing in the first 3 or 4 or 5 hours, just so that you're priming those breasts to make milk. You can't do it too much, and that clock's ticking, and it ticks for about 14 days, and then it stops, and that's where you stop being able to make the milk in the same way. So You know, if you get that priming going, you'll be ahead of the game, and you can't do it too often. You can't do it too often. Too many mums say to us, I wish I'd known that, when they come back to us at 2 weeks and they can't make enough milk, and they didn't do early stimulation in the first 48 hours, where you just can't do enough.
No.
Day and night, just do lots and lots of breastfeeding and or hand expression. You can't do enough.
So Emma has said that she's now 27 weeks and she's having her first baby. She's also been leaking and asking about when it's appropriate to start storing it. So 37 weeks onwards, we wouldn't be suggesting you do it sooner than that. And you can get we've talked about the sort of things you can keep it in the past, but syringes is quite often what we would be able to provide you with. You can ask your community midwives if they've got any, or get in touch with us and we can send you a few. We're not expecting huge amounts in these first days. We've talked about how stomach sizes are so small, and the milk volume that mothers produce in the first days is very small too. So, you know, we are talking about teaspoons, not ounces. So a cherry is the size of a newborn baby's tummy, so we're talking absolutely tiny. So a mill of colostrum would be a feast.
You don't need to fill it.
Yeah, 0.2, 0.1, whatever in the first 24 hours. A few times is fabulous, so we don't expect huge volumes in those first days. But from 37 weeks onwards, you can start thinking about collecting it, Emma. And I'm so glad she's written that the videos have been really reassuring during lockdown. I'm really glad. I'm glad. We've got quite used to doing them now, and we're having slightly less technical hitches. But we'll see what happens today. We've had a few, but thank you for the reassurance, Emma.
We haven't got through it yet.
No, exactly. We've had a few at the end, haven't we? Doriel has come on saying, hey, hello, thank you for hosting these sessions. Are there infant feeding experts at every MLU in Oxfordshire, or just the JR? And what if you have a home birth and need feeding assistance? Our staff are all fab. Our staff have all been trained. If you need our support, then we would see you as an outpatient. If you had your baby in the hospital and you need our support, we would see you here. But if you really do need our support, then we can support you as an outpatient if you've had your baby at home or on one of the MLUs. But actually, all our MLUs have got really skilled staff. We're very lucky.
Wallingford and Chipping Norton have been baby friendly for 20 years.
Yeah.
They have been accredited for 20 years. They see a lot of quite complex breastfeeding things and support mothers as well. So if you're having an MLU delivery, and Montage and Banbury also are very, very supportive, and you can go in and get support for breastfeeding in your local MLU. So there isn't any need for you to come into Oxford if you don't live in this area, unless you've got really complex issues that you need to see us. But actually all of you can self-refer. All of you can ring us up and ask us for advice and for support. You don't need to wait to be referred by your health visitor, midwife, or MSW. You can ring up and refer yourself in. And it's almost better if you do, because you ring us at your convenience.
Yeah.
If we get invited to phone you from your healthcare professional, we often ring you when it's not convenient, and you might be asleep, or you might be feeding your baby, or you might be a bit stressed by your baby not feeding well, and you can't really hear what we're saying, and it might not be convenient for you to talk, and we can't talk you through a feed or anything like that. So it's always better if you phone us, because then it's convenient to you and you haven't got stuff going on where you're rushing out, or you're having to do something, or you have appointments. It's in your time.
Yeah.
So you're much more likely to take on board what we're talking about if it is at your convenience. So do self-refer.
And remember, we've already talked about it, that actually, when we talk about seeing you, it doesn't have to be face to face. You don't actually have to come in. We can do it on an online platform. We have a thing called Attend Anywhere, which allows us to do video conversations with people, which is lovely, because then we can involve partners as well, because at the moment it's only the mum and the baby that will be coming in, and that way, we can do really good support on a video platform, as are OBS as well. They're doing that as well, and Abingdon Baby Cafe too.
You can also do it on the telephone, just talking to you one-to-one. That can
make a
be
big
sometimes
difference.
all you need. It's just a telephone call,
Yeah.
and talk you through what's happening and tell you that everything sounds normal, which is also what you want to do. Mums aren't getting that contact with other mums that they may well have had at this stage, in an early postnatal period, where you compare notes, because that's what mothers do. They compare their baby to somebody else, and somebody might be a week or two ahead of you and say, actually, I felt like you 2 weeks ago, and look at me now. Or they may all be feeling the same as you, and you don't know that. Most mums will be at home feeling absolutely tired and desperate when their babies, it's an endless long day with a newborn baby. It's an endless long day, and when your partners are busy working, it is an endless day. So you have to plan things. You have to maybe, go for a walk in the park, and when you open your eyes in the morning, have something like that planned. Or if you've got contact with other mums that you might have heard, or friends that have babies, text them, because they may be thinking, I feel lonely like you do, or I feel tired like you do, but they're not telling you, and you think all these other mothers are super mums and they're managing really well, but that's not the case. No. They may feel just like you.
I think that's one of the benefits of social media, is that when you can set up WhatsApp groups with people that you know, and actually quite often I know there are conversations going on at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning.
Anybody awake?
Anyone awake, and they're up and feeding, and it's just so nice to be able to know that you're not on your own, and you definitely won't be on your own. We've got comments racking up now, so Alice has come back to say, feeding lots and feeding every 2 to 3 hours. Well done, Alice. And she's thanked us. Shay Rachel has come and said, are we able to pick the hospital we want to give birth in? Well, we here in Oxfordshire, we're really lucky. We have a number of midwifery midwifery-led units. So we have Banbury. So out in the community, we have Banbury, Chipping Norton, Wantage and Wallingford. Although I'm not sure that Wantage has got births going on at the moment, because they've had a lot of building work going on there. And then we have the one that's in the hospital, which is the Spires, which is on level 7. In fact, that's where we are today.
We're in a labour room.
Yeah, we're in one of the rooms on Spires today. So we're on level 7 at the moment, which is where the Spires is. So there's plenty of choice where you can go. And obviously we have our delivery suite. And as I always used to say when I was a delivery suite midwife, if they were a bit disappointed and there hadn't been space on the Spires that day, I would say you can have a lovely normal birth on the delivery suite as well. So there's plenty of choice, and we have a really good home birth rate as well. Our midwives are all skilled with home births. So the choices are there for you.
Providing it's appropriate.
Yes, as long as it
was your medical needs.
So, but that's something to have a chat with your community midwife about. She'll know what's appropriate for you, but and discuss all your options. But here in Oxfordshire, you're extremely lucky. There is plenty of choice. So I hope that answers your question, Rachel. Roxana has said, hello ladies, I'm going to deliver in August. When are you supposed to go on holiday? Will there be any breastfeeding specialists around in case of need?
We don't all go on holiday.
No, we're all staggered.
We're here all the time.
We're all staggered. So
we're always here.
We don't have, there will be less of us, because one of us will be off for a week at a time, so there will be less of us, but there will be cover.
You'll never know. You'll never know.
So yeah, don't worry, we're not going to go away and abandon people.
We don't close like OBS.
They're all volunteers. They have the right to close. They're amazing. Exactly. They're
fabulous.
Absolutely amazing.
But I know you might have thought, oh, they're closing, and where am I going to get support from?
We're here.
But we're here. We are here because we're a hospital, and we're midwives being employed. So it's a 7-day-a-week service that we provide.
Yeah. So there's an expectation on us that we stagger our holiday. Much as we'd all love to go on holiday together, we're not. We'll stagger. But so yes, don't worry. We will be here. So do get in touch. Emma's come back and said thank you. Natasha has said, I'm 41 plus 3 and watching your videos are so helpful. I'm due to have our baby at the JR too. Well done. As I said, you can have lovely normal births here at the JR, so it's fabulous. Starley, whoops, I've gone up too far. Starley has said, sorry if this has been asked, I'm due to have the balloon fitted Monday and back Tuesday for water's broken. If nothing's happened after all of that, am I able to use the Spires and the birthing pool? That I'm going to have to leave for you to contact one of the midwives, if you don't mind, one of the community midwives, and ask them, because I don't know the latest on using the balloon for induction. So I'm going to defer you on that one and say, would you mind phoning up and having a chat with one of your community midwives and ask them to answer that question for you. Sorry about that. Rox Arla has come back. I forgot to say I'm going to deliver at the JR, another one at the JR.
We might see you.
Yes, so we'll be here. Cheryl Aston said, hello, thank you very much for your videos. Over the last few months I've asked a lot of questions which you've been so helpful with. I had to breast and formula feed. Her baby is now 6 weeks old, is mainly formula fed. When I try and hand express, I can still see I have milk, albeit very small amounts. When I express, I only get 1 fluid ounce. That's still a good amount, that's still 30 mils. Is it still worth offering the breast? Will she actually be getting any benefit? Yes, absolutely. Any breast milk is beneficial. Your milk.
Not everybody is able to pump and get the true amount of milk that's in their breast. Not
That's
everybody
true.
can pump well as well. So it doesn't reflect on the fact that you haven't got much milk there. If your baby's breastfeeding, you know, they're probably getting more than that out. Are they reaching their milestones? Baby reaching its milestones, and gaining weight appropriately, and weeing and pooing and things like that. But yeah, 30 mils is a good amount.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you're, you know, that it's still worth putting your baby to the breast, if the baby will still go to the breast.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, we believe any breast milk is beneficial for a baby. All those things, those antibodies that your body's producing, you know, there's enzymes that help them break down the milk, which not only helps them break down your breast milk, but will help them break down the formula milk they're getting, so it makes them more efficient. There's just so much benefit for any breast milk a baby gets. And remember, breastfeeding is way more than just food. So if your baby is still happy to go to the breast despite them getting more formula these days, then it's well worth it. Absolutely well worth it. It'd be a really nice way to do that last feed at night as well. Shay has come back. With breastfeeding, is feeding purely from the breast okay, or do you have to pump into bottles and feed that way too? First time mum, I'm very confused. Well, ideally you feed straight from the breast. That's by far the easiest way, isn't it?
Put them on the breast and let them suckle. And if that happens, you know, you're very fortunate, because most mums have a bit of a shaky journey with breastfeeding. It's not something that comes really naturally to most mums. And I'm not saying that in a way to put you off or to frighten you, but actually it is a learnt skill.
Yeah.
And you have to practice doing it lots and lots to become confident. And that's why it's so important to get help early and to get support early, so that you have that journey more quickly rather than just pushing through and getting in a pickle. So, you know, most women can give their babies just milk at the breast, and early frequent stimulation, the more you take off, the more you make in the early days. So the more you put your baby to the breast, the more you're going to produce a full supply. And you know, we aim for mums to produce about 750 mils a day in 24 hours by about 10 days, 2 weeks. Sometimes a bit less, sometimes a bit more, up to a litre some mums, but some mums just produce about 500 mils. And that's not actually, if you break it down over 8 or 10 feeds, that's only about 50 mils a feed if it's 500 mils. So, you know, it's not a huge amount of milk if you count it over 24 hours. It sounds like a huge amount, but it's not when you divide it up into feeds. So most breastfed babies have 8 to 12 feeds, 8 to 13 feeds in 24 hours. So if you divide that up, it actually isn't a huge amount. It sounds enormous. So we expect you to start to produce that and stimulate, which is why we always talk about early stimulation and priming your breasts and protecting your milk supply, because that's what you're aiming to have when you are discharged from midwifery care.
Yeah, I think it's just remembering, Shay, that, you know, when we talk about expressing, it's to secure a milk supply. If the baby is going on well, removing milk well, then we don't need to do it. We only do it because, and we talk about it a lot, as Naomi said, because we do come across a lot of women who find themselves at the end of 2 weeks with not enough milk. So actually having a little bit stored because you've hand expressed it, even if the baby hasn't needed it, it's fine. That can be put to one side, popped in the freezer. It lasts up to 6 months in the freezer. And if you needed it, you could use it then. Or, well, there's always more where it came from. So there's no need to express. It's only if mums are encountering a few problems. Because babies just sometimes take a little bit of time to get there.
So you know, it's an individual thing to you and your baby, and if you're having problems, get help early. That's the most important thing that we can say. Don't push through and then suddenly, you know, everything collapses. Just get help early. Yeah. And
sooner the better.
You can be ahead of the game then.
Jordana's come and said, what would you recommend for babies suffering from gas or stomach problems where burping and upright feeding doesn't seem to help? I think
is that with breastfeeding or bottle feeding? Is that?
Jordan doesn't say.
So if you're breastfeeding, it might be that your attachment isn't quite right. If your baby's very windy, and we talk about the lactose-lactase imbalance with breast milk. So sometimes if your baby's not quite on the breast deeply enough, or it's having little and often, you can get too much lactose from the breast milk. And the lactase in your baby's tummy, which is the enzyme that breaks it down, has a byproduct which is very fizzy gas, and that makes your baby very windy and has lots of farty, burpy, tummy achy, rumbly noises with explosive nappies. And they, yellow and frequent, and your baby is often putting on lots and lots of weight at this point because they're getting loads and loads and loads of lactose, which is basically sugar. So often people think, well, everything's fine because your baby's gaining plenty of weight, but is not happy. And it's often because you've just got this imbalance slightly wrong. And going back to what I did earlier with the attachment, if your baby's on the end, at the middle of the breast, and the nipple is in the middle of your baby's mouth, I don't know if you can see that today, I'll put it in front of my uniform, then they don't get a really deep latch. So if you just improve the attachment so that your baby's mouth is right underneath and its jaw is on the breast and its chin is really close, you'll find that that the right mix of milk will be taken out, and they'll get much less lactose all at once, and the lactase then is happy, and you don't get this byproduct of fizziness, which can make your baby a bit unsettled. This one.
Jordana's come back saying yes, breastfeeding.
Yeah, so it may well be that your attachment's not quite deep enough, and it's so subtle, it's millimetres.
Yeah, we always say millimetres make a huge difference with feeding.
You can see here that this baby is right underneath. Here, you can show this, it's pretty close to me, aren't you? You can see that the baby is much closer underneath the breast and coming right underneath from...
Cut the other one as well, it's really good.
And you can see that it's very asymmetrical. The latch that your baby has is very asymmetrical. There's much more mouth underneath the breast than on top of it, and the nipple skims the gum as the baby's going on, so it literally just touches the gum as the nipple goes past it, and it goes right to the back of the roof of the mouth, and the baby's chin is really, really close to the breast, and the nose is free, and it's the baby's sniffing the air.
And you should be able to see a little bit of areola above, certainly more than you would see below. Oh.
And that sometimes is why, if you just millimetres out, that your baby is getting lots and lots of lactose and not quite enough fat, and that makes your baby a bit windy. So revisit your positioning and attachment, and see if you can just improve it. Think about bringing your baby in closer, bring it further around so its tummy button is almost at your other nipple a little bit. It's almost like your baby's not going to get on the breast, it's so far over and it looks wrong, and it might even feel like your baby's going to fall off when it goes on, but actually then you've got your baby on this bit of breast here rather than on the nipple and the areola, so that you really get a good deep latch. And you might have to do it for a little bit and tell your baby it's all okay, because they hate change, so they will always try to go back to what they like.
When they get rewarded with a lovely, lovely amount of milk, they'll be happy.
But you might see, and the other thing to say about breastfeeding is that it takes 48 hours to see anything happen.
Yeah.
And that's why people get so demoralised with it, because when you're pumping and you don't get much out, it takes 2 days to start turning the milk supply around, 2 to 4 days. So people give up because they think it's not working. But actually, 48 hours to start changing supply, and to see change in your baby's gut, and to see poos changing colour, and all of those things. It's not in the first day. It's always about 48 hours after you started it. So you have to just keep going and trust us when we tell you, and then you get your reward. You'll get payback.
Starly's come back and said thank you, and Naomi's come and said thank you so much for the support with lots of lovely clapping. Thank you. Shay has also come back and said, how do you know if the baby is getting enough milk from the breast? Will they let you know when they've had enough? Well, yes, because normally what will happen is a baby will come off looking milk drunk. So if you look at this baby has come off and it's had enough. And they can be quite dramatic. Sometimes they can literally just push the nipple out of their mouth and come off with a great big movement, or other times they just let it fall out of their mouth, the little movement. But they do normally tell you that they've had enough. And what you're also going to look at, which Naomi's already just touched on, is you're going to look at what they're doing poos and wheeze wise. So in the first few days you're expecting meconium, black, thick, tarry stuff. As they start getting colostrum, which is a laxative, it starts to go green and gets easier to come off the bottom, because initially it's nigh on impossible to get off the bottom.
Like Marmite.
Yeah, it's certainly with cotton wool and water. We're asking a lot of you to not use baby wipes. So once you start seeing those nappies started getting a bit looser, they go green, they get easier to come off the bottom, it's much easier. And then by day 4, we're expecting them to be yellow. And we want babies to have 2 £2 coin, very small yellow nappies, and it's loose, it's very loose. People are ever so surprised that breastfed babies have very loose stools. It's not diarrhea, that's exactly what it's meant to be like. And we see each day we see the amount of wheeze they do going up. So day 1 maybe only 1 or 2 wheeze, day 2 2 or 3 wheeze, day 3 3 or 4 wheeze. You can see where it's going up to day 6. We're expecting 6 heavy wet nappies, heavy that you can take a dry one in one hand, a dry nappy in one hand, a wet one in the other, and go, yeah, that's heavy. Naomi always says put a couple of tablespoons of water in and you can feel what it feels like. So we're expecting the poos to go from black to green to yellow by day 4, and the wheeze to increase daily until you're getting 6 heavy wet nappies a day from day 6 onwards. And if that's happening, when your baby's put on the scales on day 5, it won't be a surprise, it will not be a big weight loss. So that's what you're looking for, is those poos and wheeze increasing, and that's much more instant to see, much quicker to see than the weight, which takes a few days to, as Naomi said, to see that change happening.
And you know, is your baby swallowing? Can you hear your baby glugging? Do you see that big jaw movement that we talk about when your baby's on the breast, and you can see the ears wriggling? And the other thing is their eyes are usually open when they start to get milk. They're really engaged with you, and they're really thinking, whoa, that's good, and their eyebrows are going up, and you know, they're really, you can hear that as they're swallowing. And it might be that they suckle and swallow every time, or they suckle and swallow every other time.
Yeah.
But if they're not doing much swallowing, then you need to be alerting somebody to that. So they may not do that on day 1, 2, because your milk hasn't come in, but by day 3 to 4, your milk will have come in, and you'll start to see your baby glugging much more deeply, and will be much more calm at the breast. You know, they're chasing the milk on day 2, and they may feed frequently, and they're really, you know, moving about and on off, and we talk about the second night when you have the baby. You know, they really are feeding all night long, and that's what they should be doing.
I was about to say, that's normal. That isn't a problem. It isn't an indication that you need to do anything else, you need to give any other milk. It is absolutely normal. So on day 2, if at all possible, rest during the day, so that you know that when that baby is going to be awake most of the night, which they are, you can cope with it, and you know it's normal. So don't need to give anything else,
normally
just
when you go
your
home,
milk.
isn't it? And you're worried because you've got nobody to ask, and you think, oh, I wish I'd stayed in hospital last night. After all, when the midwife said, why don't you stay in and have another night with us so we can support you? You want to be at home, but actually then you worry because your baby is awake all night. You literally hardly get a shut eye. You know, you sit there with your baby on your chest all night long.
But it's normal.
It's normal. That's what babies should be doing. Your hormone levels are really high, and your baby is chasing the milk to come in. And shortly after that, you know, within 24 hours, you should have breasts that are feeling heavier, fuller, warmer, and start to, you know, produce some milk. So you'll start to see that they become more settled at the breast, and they're happier.
The babies have done a fantastic job on that second night of
they're
driving your milk supply. Right, Natasha's come back saying that she's got the same situation as Starly about having her sweep on Sunday and the balloon catheter. It seems to be a new way of inducing. It is quite new. It's not been in for very long, and that she'd not heard about it before. Have we got any experience of this time? From my times on the delivery suite, no. This is much newer than that. I've been part of the infant feeding team for quite a long time now. So I think when it comes to those questions, I'm going to say speak to community midwives. I'm aware of it. I don't know the intricacies of it. I don't know, who's being offered it and who isn't. So, but presumably it was working because we wouldn't be offering it otherwise. So I don't know if you've got anything to add to that. I don't know if you're aware. So I'll read all my. So yeah. Rebecca's come on. Thanks for hosting. I moved to the UK a few months ago. I don't qualify for maternity leave. Oh, so we'll plan to go back to work 3 months after my baby is born. Is my employer required by law to allow me time and private space to pump at work? They are expected to provide you with a lockable room and access to a fridge to store your milk in.
But and also for a rest.
Yeah.
Legally, they have to provide you a place to rest, but not necessarily to pump by law. And I think that the law is slightly different under 6 months to over 6 months, depending on when you go back. So I think it's looking at Maternity Alliance.
Yes. Go and have a look at Maternity Alliance because they have a lot of information on there. about what the situation is and what you're meant to be provided with. And I would get in there as early as possible with your employer and say, I'm coming back to work in 3 months. Don't leave it to the last minute. Tell them in advance. Give them plenty of time to put a plan in place, and go with all the information that you've discovered. And we can help you with that too as well, because we've done it for other people in the past.
It's a very brave employer not to support you.
Yeah.
In your need to produce milk for your baby.
Especially because we know, and research proves, that mothers who are feeding their babies their own milk are likely to spend less time off doing carers leave, because your babies are going to be less sick. So you're much more likely to have a really good employment record as a result of being a mother who's giving your own milk, because your baby's less likely to need hospitalisation or be unwell. So they should be really supporting you with this, because you will have a really good track record of not having to take time off to look after your baby for being unwell. So
it's good for your health too.
Absolutely.
Your long-term health.
So, right, moving on. Jordana's come back. She has a perfect and deep latch according to the midwives. Okay, so I will say that we say there's millimetres of a difference. It can be just tiny weeny change makes a difference. So Jordana, if you want to do an online chat, we can have a quick look online. I'd be very happy to. We might be able to see something that we can change just a tiny bit, but it may be worth it. I'm sure I recognise her name before. There's a lot of talk about making enough milk. I had a huge oversupply and it was the bane of my life. Oh, it is when it happens. I totally agree.
It's almost as bad as not enough milk.
Yeah, my baby was struggling with the letdown and I was constantly leaking through breast pads after a very short time, and had to change after every feed, I think, since... Oh, sorry, I'm going to get down to the rest of the question. It's gone disappearing. Bear with me. User error here. Since I would spray everywhere, I've taken the supply down at 5 weeks with block feeding, using only one breast over a 4-hour period, which helped the loads with feeds. If I go back to offering both breasts, since he can now empty one at a time, will we go back to oversupply, or should it have normalised? I would think it should have normalised, because you've dealt with that oversupply now, Aya, and well done you, because it is awful. I know we talk about lack of milk a lot, but we do see a lot of that too. But an oversupply is really, really tough to deal with, isn't it?
Yeah, quite overwhelming actually.
Yeah, and we know that mums end up stuck at home. Not that we can go many places at the moment, but they end up stuck at home because they can't go anywhere, because they need to feed or they need to pump, because they just can't escape.
So well done for that. If it's hopefully it'll settle down once you've put the order in to change that supply and you've calmed it down a little bit. If you've still got problems, you could phone us and we can talk you through again.
We've got Claire next. Hello Claire, congratulations. Claire from OMVP. So she asks, oh my word, is he 3 weeks already, your baby? That's amazing. So, and he's feeding brilliantly.
Well done, Claire.
Because I saw you in hospital. But he's a hand sucker and he has some colic, not too bad. So we're doing lots of skin to skin and dark rooms in the evening, which helps. However, he wants to feed a lot, capital she's written. A few people have recommended a dummy, but I read do not until 6 weeks. True, or is it okay for my husband to introduce a dummy?
I think it's entirely up to you.
It's your choice.
It's your choice. I mean, we don't recommend before 6 weeks just because it takes that long to establish your supply and breastfeeding. And you don't want to miss cues, and you don't want to affect your supply and what your baby needs to feed, and also you don't want your baby to get used to a teat rather than the breast. But if you want to introduce a dummy, if that's what you feel you need, that's absolutely fine. There aren't any rules here, and I think, is your positioning brilliant? I know you're saying feeding great. Can you get it any deeper? It might be that you just need to tweak the feeding slightly just to get a fuller mouth, full of breast. Sometimes if your baby's not quite getting a full enough mouth full of breast, they search for that suckling that they might want. So it might be that you just need to tweak your positioning just a millimetre to see if you can get a slightly deeper latch to increase the amount of breast in the mouth, and that often satisfies your baby's suckling needs, and they don't sort of suckle and search all the time for the breast. It's about the oral experience. It's not about the food necessarily as well, it's the oral experience, and if your baby doesn't get that, they will search. So look at your positioning, just tweak your positioning a teeny little bit and see if that improves their behaviour.
Right. And congratulations again. It was lovely to meet him and you on the wards. It was lovely, and I'm glad to hear he's doing well. Nicholas asked, is it okay to do a mixture of breast and formula, or do you need to pick one or the other? So we would normally suggest that if you are wanting to breastfeed, that you start only breastfeeding in the beginning, because you need to establish your milk supply, and then if it's mixed feeding is what you want to do, then you can introduce that a little bit later. But if you start introducing formula early on, then actually the likelihood of you producing a milk supply is slim. So it's very difficult, as we've mentioned, to build a supply up later. So get your milk supply in place, and then you can start thinking about when you want to bottle feed. And if you're thinking of bottle feeding, is it because you want your partner to be involved? And if that's the case, you could be expressing, and they could be giving express breast milk. And it's remembering that exclusive breastfeeding does give the best health outcomes for babies. Much as we're not here to tell you how to feed your babies, it is exclusive feeding is the best and optimal way of feeding a baby if you can. So perhaps have an open mind, see how you get on, and then see whether you want to formula feed later, or maybe you want just express breast milk. But you don't have to pick one or the other. And many of our mums that we meet, and we've talked about lots of mums not having quite enough milk, do have to formula feed, but we maximise on as much breast milk as they can give as well, because there's so much benefit from any breast milk. So.
It's a very personal choice.
Yeah. This arrow does not want to work today. Michelina's message, hello ladies, just wanted to say hello from me and my baby girl who arrived on Tuesday. Congratulations. And we're currently breastfeeding colostrum and it's going okay. Fantastic. I can feel a bit of pain at the first 10 seconds, but then it's going away. I hope that means all's okay. I'm hoping we'll be successful in breastfeeding. Thank you for everything and our sessions. So,
well done, that sounds fabulous.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Sounds absolutely right. If you're not sure, get some support.
It's quite normal that when a mum first starts feeding that the nipple's a bit sore, because the first thing the baby does is to suck the nipple right to the back of the mouth, and that stretching is that 10 seconds you mentioned. That stretching can elongate the nipple and areola up to almost twice its length. So if there's been any slight damage on that, that's quite uncomfortable. But as you said, 10 seconds and then it's gone, that's exactly what we're looking for. So that's brilliant news. It's if it carries on being sore, we want to have a look and see what's going on. But that sounds wonderful. Well done, Michelina. Nice to hear. Natasha's come back and said, thank you. Vicky Man, hello, my baby is 10 weeks old and I have a really good supply. Do you still accept breast milk donations for the milk bank, please? I've never done it before. And if I don't know if there's a very big demand at the hospital. Thanks. We love it. We're actually really well off at the moment, aren't we?
We'll take it up to a year. And you need to contact Amanda Wood. The details are on the Women's Centre website, so the John Radcliffe website. Go on to Women's Services and then click onto infant feeding or maternity, and you can find the link to donor breast milk, and there's an email that you can send, and she'll send a form that you can fill in, and you need to have a blood test. So to be compliant with national guidelines, the NICE guidelines, you have to give another blood test. Even if you've had one recently and pregnant, when you were pregnant, you still have to do another one, and then they will accept your milk. You need to give minimum of 6 bottles, so any milk is fantastic. In the COVID epidemic, we have had, or pandemic I should say, we've had excessive amounts of milk given to us. Mums have sat and cuddled their babies for days and days and days, and have donated so much milk that we have had lots and lots and lots of it, which has been just music to our ears. It's been so helpful to us.
There is another milk bank as well, which is the Hearts Milk Bank, which we tap into on occasions, which is a milk bank that is more national, and they accept donations as well. It might be worth looking into them. But actually, we'd be delighted to have your milk, and we've been so lucky, haven't we, recently, in able to support mothers longer than we would have done in the past, to build up their supply, give them a window of opportunity to build their supply up by bridging the gap between their supply and what baby needs with donated breast milk, even
so
for a few days.
Formula, and it's been just so lovely for us. It's such a gift from women to women. And we know how hard you've worked to get that milk to give to other mothers as a gift, It's truly wonderful, truly wonderful.
It means that we can maintain more babies human milk exclusive. I mentioned exclusivity a few minutes ago, and it is absolutely fabulous if we can keep babies just on human milk. That's absolutely brilliant. Jordana's
And what happens, sorry to interrupt, Alex, is that if you have it, a courier will come and collect it on a motorbike. The blood couriers will come and pick it up for you from your house. So it's very, very, very easy to donate breast milk.
Yeah. I think actually the forms are online as well. So if you look at them, go on and find the milk bank on the hospital website. The forms are there. You can have a look at them. Jordana's come back and said thanks for these live events. It's been very helpful, and thank you for taking the time. Thank you for your feedback. It makes it worth it. Rita, we're almost done. Yeah, I've got another one from Rita. Rita's 22 weeks pregnant and wants to breastfeed but doesn't know a lot about it. If I express milk and put it in the fridge when I want to use that milk, do I warm it up in the microwave or leave it out of the fridge for a while? Thanks. Well, first and foremost, we would be suggesting that you feed from the breast, because it's absolutely perfect temperature from the breast in the most environmental and sustainable receptacle, if you think about it, because there's no waste when it comes to breastfeeding. So perhaps think more about breastfeeding as such, no doubt, just bring the baby. But if you do need to express for one reason or another, or want to express, then we would just normally bring it up to body temperature, and that might be just standing it in a jug of warm water. We wouldn't recommend putting any bottles of milk, whether it's breast milk or formula milk, in the microwave, because you end up with pockets of heat which can be very hot and obviously be very dangerous for the baby. So we wouldn't ever recommend using a microwave. And you can bring it out and bring it up to temperature just by standing on the side, but just running it under a warm tap or standing it in a jug of warm water is all that you need to do. You don't need to do anything else. But perhaps rather than thinking about the pumping, at 22 weeks, let's assume you're going to feed directly from the breast, because that's by far the simplest. No washing up, no paraphernalia, and all at the right temperature and there at the need of the baby. Need to add to that?
And make sure you have conversations with your midwives as they see you in the antenatal period about any questions you have about breastfeeding. You have lots of sessions with your midwives when you have your antenatal checks, and you should have an opportunity to discuss any feeding worries that you want to address. So take questions to them when you see them. They'll be very happy to answer your questions for you.
Absolutely. And we've talked about it before. Unicef Baby Friendly Initiative have a fantastic website with loads of resources on there, videos and animations and all sorts of things, booklets. If you go and have a look there, there's so much that you can learn from there that will give you lots of information. Vicky said, can I check, is it a minimum of 6 bottles at a time for the courier to collect? Thanks again.
I think it's just six bottles in total.
Yeah.
6 bottles in total.
So you probably collect it and then they would take it. So because it comes.
So you don't have to give litres and litres, is what I'm saying. It's just minimum 6 bottles.
Yeah.
And they will send you the pack that you need to start off and do everything, and tell you exactly what you need to do. But I think to donate, the minimum amount, because of the cost to them, is that you donate 6 bottles. That's what they've said. But you can give much more if you want to.
Rita's come back and said thank you. I don't think we've got any more questions.
So we've come to a natural end at an hour. That's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah. So same place, same time next week.
So save your questions up.
Yeah, and those that need a bit more support, do get in touch. We do have cover 7 days a week. I'm working Saturday, you're on Sunday, aren't you? Sarah's working tomorrow. So there may only be one of us on. We're talking about the holidays. There may only be one of us on, but there will be somebody on. So do ring, and we can help you with whatever problems you've got.
Contact details are either on the Women's Centre website, or they should be on a link at the bottom of this session.
Yeah.
There should be information on how to contact us through that, with all the details, plus how to contact Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support and La Leche League as well, plus all the national helplines that are available. So it should be easy to find our information should you need to contact us.
Okay, thank you to Rita, Vicky and Nicola, who all come up and saying thank you now. So thank you to all of you too for listening.
Yeah,
and
love your questions.
Yeah, thank you. Yes,
Keep
it's very
coming.
difficult if you don't give us questions.
We'll sit and look at you.
All right, perhaps we'll meet some of those that you're having your babies here soon. We'll meet you too. All right, thank you very much. We'll say goodbye.
Bye for now.
Bye.